March the 24th, 2025. Guys, you're looking at, I think, so far the best image of what we're seeing over in the Giza Plateau. Here you've got 1, 2, 3 pyramids. Here's your pyramid right here. Guys, it's that step pyramid, and you got a couple other buildings laid out here. And you notice that in the top are the biggest 2 pyramids, and it looks like even in the smallest one, and some of the buildings in the outlying area, there's things that are going on all the way to a couple thousand feet deep, right? Now they're saying it may be twice that much. Either way, I want to talk about a couple of things. One, if you remember the video last night, right here is your sand level. See where this pyramid right there is the Great Pyramid, and then it kind of mirrors out. That's a sand level. Everything else is below it. And if you look at this image carefully, especially in this section, probably maybe 400 or 500 meters deep, there's connections between these. See this line right there and down through here. And in this section of the big 2 pyramids, you've got a lot of sections showing up. Now you got a SAR radar, or SAR satellite imaging, was what the scientists were trying to debunk. I mentioned this last night. And then I put a video up showing they're using a series of about 4 different technologies. It's not just SAR. So the scientists weren't that wrong, but they just weren't looking at all the technology being used. You got thermal imaging and all of those different things, ground penetrating radar. Same thing. If you remember the video last night, they can look inside a mountain that's a volcano, or they can look inside the Fukushima nuclear plant. They have ways to do that. Anyway, what we're seeing at the top, in my opinion, is the heat from the sun, and you got a lot of stone work up there. You got sand that's like glass. It's going to reflect a lot of heat, cool off at night. But the stones in the pyramids will maintain that heat most of the night because they're so dense, right? So you got that right there. Even in the daytime, they're going to be hot, but even at night. I've seen it in Palm Springs, California. One of the places we were staying when we were working on that cable TV system building there in Hot Springs and Palm Springs was the fact that the sunny side of these older hotels, they stayed warm all night because of the stones on them, guys. Anyway, neither here or there. But that's what we're seeing, I think, in this imaging. Now, as we get, especially these 2, as we get deeper, we're starting to see more signatures. Again, we've got different technology. We don't even know if they're telling us all of it, but there's several types. So it's not as, in some of these other buildings, the smaller one here, and I'll show you a picture of how this is laid out from the air, but it's not really all the way down, or it's off to the side so far that this side glancing or the side view of these images is not picking that up. But why are we seeing the signatures this far deep? Is heat rising? And is that why we're starting to get imaging at all? Right? If it was nothing down here, and supposedly the reds in the SAR images alone would show density of something bouncing back, the cylinders, blocks, concrete, or steel, whatever it is, But down here, it doesn't look like that. This looks like a heat signature. Now, what I want to throw out there, and I want to hear your comments, is the fact of Revelation, was it chapter 9, I believe. We'll talk about the bottomless pit. And really, that's a misnomer, and because it goes 3 different translations back from that word, or 2 more back from that word, of bottomless pit. Before it was called that, it was called the abyss in the older Bibles. But before that, in the original Greek, it was called the cistern. It was very deep, but it was called a cistern. And a cistern it can be man-made, or it can be a natural cave system, but in that terminology, it was to gather water back in that time, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. But are we getting to the time, and our Father in heaven is starting to show us these things now as he promised? Because we know that smoke will rise from this cistern, bottomless pit, abyss, but the word is cistern. I'm going to show you in the Greek in just a moment exactly what it says, okay? But is heat starting to rise? Is it starting to build up? Now, as we know that smoke will rise out of that abyss, would it be because possibly you got lava heating up, things like that? We don't know. We don't know all of this yet, but God is starting to show us things like he promised, so that if we try with all of our heart and mind to figure out what he's doing, he's going to show us the rest. And what is the Old Testament, guys? It says, it is the glory of God to hide such a matter, but it is the honor of kings to search that matter out. It's not verbatim, from the highest heights to the greatest depths. And I've always used that as my watchman's creed. It is the glory of God to hide a matter, but it is the honor of kings to search it out. That really rings a bell to me. Anyway, what are we seeing here, guys? Why are we seeing it now? Is this some kind of situation? And I think we're very close to the end times. The Middle East is on fire as far as the war situation between them and Europe. What are we seeing, guys? Let me show you in the Greek what it actually says in Revelation chapter 9. And this is a great study tool. But in the top here, again, Greek is New Testament and some Aramaic, and the Old Testament is Hebrew. But this is Greek right up here. And this is as close as they can translate it in the proper order. Now, Hebrew's written backwards, and so everything's kind of confusing. Greek is written a certain way. But here's what it says. Just read along with me because it may be confusing. It says, and the fifth angel or messenger. Remember, angel means messenger, right? Not winged being. And it's trumpet. And I saw the star out of the sky falling. And it had come to fall into the souls. They translated it to earth, which same thing, I guess, but to the soul, does that mean surface or penetrating? Don't know. But it says soul. Again, the fifth messenger blowing that trumpet, the fifth trumpet, and it was given unto the one a latch. Now, that's been translated to key. The one of a cistern, the one of depth along. Depth along means very deep. Cistern doesn't say abyss, and it doesn't say bottomless pit. Now, cistern can, again, be man-made. Most of them are that we know about, but it can be a natural occurring process too. But we do know that these natural occurring cisterns can be drilled down into, like a cave system. Again, a depth along, that means like a bottomless pit, guys. But again, cistern. Now let's take a look at one more verse here in the Greek, and we'll go back. But it says, and it opened up to the cistern of the depth along, again, bottomless pit or long depth, and it stepped up smoke out of this one of the cistern, smoke of a furnace, and it was obscured the sun, blocked out the sun and the air out of the smoke of this cistern. Again, it's kind of confusing reading it, bear with me. But what happens right after that, it talks about the locust. And when you talk about the locust, guys, does it say that they come out of the pit too, or just the smoke? What it says is smoke rises, it blocks out the sun. If you read it in King James if you need to. Blocks out the sun, and then from the smoke, is that coming from the sky through the smoke? It doesn't say the locust army comes out of the pit. It says it comes out of the smoke. So we're blocking out the sun, the sky's blocked out. Then coming through there, the smoke is a locust storm. It never says they come out of the pit. Now, we're talking about vast underground caverns and things like that, guys, just like all over the world. But here is one. This one is maybe Istanbul. I've got a bunch of them here. But this is an underground water collection system called a cistern. You can see where the stairs come down here. And a lot of these, this one's several hundred years old, but a lot of them now have a sidewalk where tourists can come in and see them. They're across Europe. They're very plentiful. And let me show you a couple of things. Now, this one is just an AI, but it's showing a vast caravan or cistern, and it actually came from the Dune movie, one of their AI generated things. And at the top of this, you see the opening going very high, but it's pulling water up. You see that? It's called a cistern, like dropping a bucket in a well. Now, again, that's just AI. It's just food for thought, though. Again, looking over in Turkey, check this out, guys. They've been here hundreds of years. Look at the water. They're there to collect rainwater and ground seepage. Here's another amazing one. Watch this. You know where that's at? Houston, Texas. It says for years, a large portion of the Houston's public drinking water was stored in an underground cistern right off the banks of the Buffalo Bayou. Built in 1926, the cistern was used for decades until it sprang a leak that couldn't be found or repaired. The public reservoir was drained and set unused and practically forgotten about. How many people in Houston knew about it? Anyway, years passed. Houstonians enjoyed the Lee and Joe Jamal Skate Park and Waterworks Pavilion above ground, while the empty cavernous space the size of 1.5 footballs of fields lurked beneath. Now they got it fixed, and now it's reopened, guys. Check this out. Look at that. I wonder where they got that designed. Kudos to Houston. You guys, thank you for putting up with this. I know it's kind of confusing. I've had a headache from working on it for 2 days and getting so much information. What the problem was organizing it into something logical that I could tell you about. But here is, I think, more or less you would call a natural cistern, and it's in Jerusalem. And this was back in 2021. It says a rare moment in St. Helene's cistern when its well was lit and holding plenty of water in the winter of 2021. So you do have that, but you do have some man-made aspects, a stairwell, things like that. But it sounds like that it stays dry most of the time. It's not very deep. But again, you do have more or less natural forming, just like in a cave system. You can have water down there but was what we're seeing with the images of Egypt. It could have been that at one time. And because it was arid and they were terraforming, guys. In other words, if you were down that deep and getting water that deep, you could make the whole desert flourish. People say, well, water's not that deep. Now they're finding it way past where they thought it was, up to 5 miles deep. Water, pure lakes. And the deepest well they've ever tried to drill was the Russians during the Cold War, by the way, on just a side note. And they got down to, I think, halfway to the mantle. And they went 20 years to do it. And 12,000 feet, 12,000, very far, a long way, halfway to the mantle. They gave up because of the conflict with the Cold War, money, everything else. But people that were in the area where they were drilling this deepest hole on earth said constantly they could hear groans and moans and people screaming. It sounded like people screaming from the bowels of hell at that depth. Now, that's just a side note, but you can look that up. Now, I want to go back to the Bible. I want to go back to Revelation for a moment, chapter 21 and verse 16. The reason I'm doing this, guys, and everyone's not going to agree with me, but I've studied this stuff for a very long time, the Greek and the Hebrew, for 40 years now, going back to the days when Pastor Murray was still young up in Gravette, Arkansas, listening. And I think I have his entire collection. And now you can get it in CD, but back then, guys, it was in cassettes. You remember that? You could get anyway, he had a lot of good ideas, and he had a lot of information that we needed to know, and it was a step into what we're seeing now. He knew, and he told the stories about the Bible in a way that made you want to hear more. Plus, he did it in a way that made it not very hard to understand. That I'd like to try to do that with this section right now. But in Revelation 21:16, the New Testament describes the New Jerusalem as a square city with the length, the breadth, and the height at 12,000 furlongs. In other words, they're all the same. Now, there's some conflict over that, but they say furlongs are stadia, which they're saying would be roughly 1,500 miles. That would be the base, I guess, of it, of 12,000 furlongs. And then you would have to square that, to get your square miles or whatever to do that. But listen, when we're talking about this, there's something very important, and I think they hid this information in the Bible just like they did so much other things. In other words, if you look over here, they're showing a cube. Now, does it say cube anywhere in here? No, it doesn't. Anyway, let's go to 21 here in a minute. King James, keep it simple. And he that talked with me had a golden reed. This was one of the angels or messengers to measure the city. Now, this was a city coming down out of heaven. Bear with me. And the gates thereof and the wall thereof. In other words, this messenger, this angel, he had the technology and information there to measure this thing. We see it with surveyors now when I'm holding a rod. Anyway, and the city lieth foursquare, and the length is as large as the breadth. Now, let me pull this down a minute and show you this. Now, just bear with me. We're talking about, and what they're saying is the width and the breadth are the same, exactly the same, and the height is exactly the same. Let me come back up here. Bear with me. The length and the breadth of the height of it are equal, and he measured the wall thereof at 144 cubits, according to the measure of a man. This is of the angel. And the building of the wall was of jasper. Let me stop. They're saying it's a cube, like you have the black cube with the Muslims, right? It's not. They never say the top. What they're saying, the length, the breadth, and the height are equal. Fits a pyramid perfect, guys. Your height, if they could build a perfect pyramid, so far, they have not gotten it exactly right. There may be a yard or two on the base different from the height. But again, 31 feet was knocked off when they knocked off that, what they would call the pyramidal, the top peak, when we saw the battle in the Second Pyramid Wars. Anyway, you've got the walls are the same height. It doesn't say the top of the wall matches the bottom anywhere in here. It says the bottom is square. In other words, the breadth, the width are the same. The height is the same as the breadth and the width. Now, what you're seeing here is slant length. That's slightly different than the height, right? That doesn't matter. The height to here is the same as the breadth and the width. That's exactly what it's saying. And he talked with me with this golden reed to measure the city and the gates thereof and the wall thereof. And the city lieth foursquare, and the length is as large as the breadth. Again, that's the bottom foundation. And he measured the city with a reed, 12,000 furlongs, which you're dealing with about 1,500 miles, guys. The length and the breadth and the height are equal. The length, the breadth, and the height are equal. That's what we're seeing right there. Now, why would they put a cube in there? You tell me. Anyway, it doesn't match that. It says, and the building of the wall was of jasper, and the city was pure gold like unto glass, and the foundations of the wall of the city were garnished. Now, where did this city come from? It came down out of heaven. He was watching it come down out of heaven. It wasn't just built there in Jerusalem like they think the third temple's supposed to be, with all of that nonsense. The third temple is coming from my Father. Anyway, building the wall of the jasper, the city was pure gold, like unto glass. The foundations, here's the important part, bear with me, were jasper, the second was sapphire. This is the foundation, and we're talking about of the wall. Let me pull this back up just a moment, just to make sure we get it right. And the foundations of the wall of the city were garnished with all manner of precious stones. This should be ringing a bell from a few days ago. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third chalcedony, the fourth an emerald, the fifth sardonyx, the sixth sardius, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th chrysoprassus, and the 11th jacinth, and the 12th an amethyst. And the 12 gates were 12 pearls. Every several gate was of one pearl, and the street of the city was pure gold. This is lowering down out of heaven. Where have you heard about these different color crystals, guys? Now go back to the Second Pyramid War. That's where I got this and clipped it and brought it over here. Now remember, Second Pyramid War, Enki and Enlil were fighting. Enki was held up in the Great Pyramid. He's the one that warned us of the flood. And their mother stepped in and said, enough is enough, boys. Probably slapped them both upside the head and said, y'all get together at my house and we're going to talk this out. Enki agreed. And again, they were in pretty dire straits. Food, things like that. But when they left, the group from Enlil, the one that wanted to flood the earth and wipe out the humans, he sent in his folks and they saw this and they destroyed it. It says, whereas in the narrow passages only a dim green light glowed. Again, this was the Enlil group. Enki had evacuated. Now I think what they did before Enki left, they buried and sealed the subterranean passages going down to what we're looking at. That's why when Enlil's group got in there, they only saw the upper pyramid. That's all they described. Its vault is like a rainbow. The darkness ends there. The many-hued glows were emitted by 27 pairs of diverse crystal stones that were evenly spaced along the whole length of each side of the gallery. In the wall, just like in Revelation 21, each crystal stone emitted a different radiance, giving the place its rainbow effect. What did we just read about the different color stones in Revelation? Now, many people are saying that in some of the writings, I haven't found that yet, that Thoth, the one that we were reading about this war, and from him through the crystal gates and through Zachariah Sitchin, they're talking about that Thoth had a pyramid-shaped craft located somewhere beneath the Sphinx. Now, if you go back to the movie of Stargate, not the series, but the original movie, that happened. There was a pyramid, but then a capstone came down that was a huge UFO. Now, think about it. You know, everything that we have seen, all the big movies, Ben-Hur, everything you've seen comes from either history or the Bible. It doesn't matter what it is, Stargate, all of that. But again, we're seeing in Stargate, and this is just a AI, you're seeing this pyramid-shaped, huge craft fly down and set down on the pyramids. And the return of the gods. Think about what I'm telling you guys. I don't want to make it any longer. I'm tired. It's 7:18 p.m. It's been a long day. Believe me. And I know it has been for many people out there. But guys, again, open your mind. If you don't like what I'm saying, you don't have to listen to it. But we're getting into the days and times of the end time. And what did it say? Men's heart will all men's hearts will fail them. Men and women's hearts will fail them. Why? You start seeing what we're talking about here, and they may. But what are you and I going to do? We're going to say, hey, we already know this is coming. Our hearts are not going to fail us. Our hearts and our strength is in Jesus and our Father in heaven. But you need to know knowledge is power. Again, it is the honor, it is the glory of our Father to hide a matter. It is the honor of kings to search it out. Why? Because God wants you to know the truth. He wants you, if you're not satisfied with what you're seeing and hearing, and you got conflicting reports and things that don't make sense, then it's time for you to search it out for yourself so that you're not conflicted and you can understand the end because you understand the beginning. And this is all getting into very deep situations, guys, but if you'll simplify it in your mind, you're going to understand that these are the times that were talked about. And why, again, did they say men's hearts would fail them? Because they were not expecting what was coming. And what's coming is not necessarily bad at all. We do know the first one coming is not the one you want to be associated with, according to the Bible. The first one gathers the tares for the fire, and then the wheat or the seed of the children of God are gathered for his barn. Anyway, we're watching, guys, I hope you got something out of this. Again, they're not describing a cube, they're describing a pyramid. Why does it say it's coming down out of heaven like that? And why are we seeing that in history? And now we actually are seeing reports, some of them are fake, I'm sure, that they're seeing pyramid-type craft. And I don't think anybody's going to see what we're talking about until that moment. But again, it's food for thought. I'd love to hear what you think about it. Again, open your mind. I may not be exactly right. I'm not claiming I am. But I'm seeing a pattern, and I'm trying to share it with you. And for the last couple of days, again, it's been quite a headache because I've got a lot more information. You're just seeing the tip of it, but it's so hard, to organize it into a pattern that makes sense that it would be confusing. And this is already, it's going to be a short video. It's already 28 minutes. But again, back it up if you need to. Look at some of the information. But open your heart, open your mind. Don't be caught off guard about what is coming. Again, you know me, I believe in the Creator of all, our Father in heaven, and I believe in our Christ, Jesus Christ, which I like to say Emmanuel, because that's what the angels told them, to call him Emmanuel, God with us. I don't know why that's the only time it was mentioned in the Bible. Blows my mind because I really love the name. And why didn't they name him Emmanuel when the angels told him to? They told him to do that. Anyway, I love my Savior and I love my Father in heaven. I love you guys. It's a heads up. Be safe.